as you look at potential things that could happen, what are the things that haven't happened yet that you're like, this is going to happen? This is going to be like, these are kind of the big dominoes still to fall.
I think the biggest domino that I do now think is going to happen, and that changed yesterday, is the Xavien Howard situation. I do think he's going to get traded at this point. I thought him and Miami would be able to find a resolution as new agents, so I thought maybe he comes in, works with the Dolphins, they figure something out. I thought his requests were pretty reasonable. If it's true what he said in his post, he didn't want new money, just wanted more guarantees. Couldn't resolve it, and I think that could be a power shift. We heard from Rap Sheet today, Ian Rappaport, that 2 playoff teams have already called, so I think he could be a big cog in the rest of this offseason.
Who do you think those playoff teams are?
Great question. I wonder if, I know they just, and we'll get to it later, they just wasted a lot of money and capital on Randall Cobb, but I wonder if Green Bay maybe is in the mix. You could make a case that Kevin King lost them the playoff game against the Bucs last year. And yes, they drafted, a corner pretty early in Eric Stokes, but you never know the rookie corner, obviously. So I think maybe they could be one of those teams. Maybe the Saints, because they're crazy and they're in on every single deal.
Call everybody.
I don't know, play a lot of man coverage. Marshawn Lattimore facing a potential suspension. They're very thin at corner, so maybe them as well.
The Saints are the team.
They somehow got $11.3 million of cap space. I don't know where it came from.
The Saints are the guy in your friend group who literally sends a sup to every girl the second her relationship status goes to single.
So division is an issue, right? Because obviously the Jets would be a team that could use him. They need to sign their
playoff team.
They need to sign their quarterback, which is tilting me. The Browns could be a team, although they seem like the kind of team, but I don't know they wouldn't give up the assets. I don't think that they're a ton of picks for veterans type team, although they did for Odell in a previous regime. It's tricky.
Pittsburgh, maybe?
Yeah, Pittsburgh. They're sort of in that man coverage. I'm not actually sure where Howard the scheme fit for him would be. The Niners would be another one, because where are they right now? They're at Mosley, Verrett.
Yeah.
Kind of on the outside.
Very different. that's a different scheme.
Yeah, certainly. But you can sort of. They're also switching.
Play anything.
Yeah, they're also switching defensive coordinators, so it's not necessarily they'll be tied to the Salah one. And the Niners right now, I said this to George just to tilt him. I think 3rd best odds according to Pinnacle to win the Super Bowl right now.
Brad. You'd be shocked to find that worked.
So it's interesting. I do think Arizona continues to be a good spot. I do think if he wants more money, Jacksonville could also be a spot.
So last question on Howard, because he's a super valuable asset. He's a corner that has been one of the best corners at his peak, out there, right? Why would the Dolphins, if he's not asking for new money, be so hesitant to add guarantees to his deal?
A great question. And it generally comes down to just trying to maintain precedent, trying to think more about the next guy that's going to do this and not so much about the guy in the present. But I think when you look at the context of the offseason they've had, the first big storyline of the entire NFL offseason was them cutting Kyle Van Noy. He had $12.5 million in injury-only guaranteed money, and he wasn't injured, so he got none of that, obviously. And that's kind of a similar situation. And they spent a lot on non-draft picks, which Howard didn't like when they added Byron Jones. And they're also now cutting guys and trading guys. Shaq Lawson, they trade to NFL purgatory. They trade him to Houston. They're not really sticking by their guys. And I think at a certain point, yes, I think we overvalue locker room and culture and all that stuff. Yes, we do, and we don't, but some people do. Yeah. But at a certain point, I think you should consider, are we going to have an uprising in this locker room? I don't know why they can't figure it out. If it's true, all he wants is more guarantees. I would make that work.
But
they set the precedent by signing Byron Jones, a worse cornerback, to way more money.
But hold on, but
isn't that the precedent?
But no, going into last year, Byron Jones was considered a better player than Xavien Howard.
Okay, whatever. But considered a better player they're on a certain level.
Yeah. But I think Brad's point is an important one, and one that we've talked about a few times. But it's sort of so we used to talk to Zach, who played quarterback in the NFL and at Oklahoma State, where he's like, one of the reasons you run the ball on 1st and 10 is to give the quarterback a mental break, right? You take a negative EV thing to have a positive global EV.
Right.
Locker room stuff is like you watch the Rodgers press conference today. It clearly grated on him that they let Bulaga and Lindsley and like
Jordy Nelson's
yeah. But like, and again, guys like us will say, yeah, but that's probably a sharp move. Like every single move the Patriots made was probably pissed Brady off, right? And for the longest time, it was kind of like, yeah, who cares? You won 6 Super Bowls. Get over it. And then, but you clearly see Tom in Tampa Bay now sort of like living his best life because he's got a team that's sort of like throwing caution to the wind and doing whatever he wants. There may be, to Brad's point, there may be some value. And I don't know what that value is. I think it's probably overstated hugely, but there is some negative externality to making the positive EV move at every decision. I do think, because like for me personally, I think Howard, like I wouldn't trade for him because you're buying a corner off a 10 interception season.
Yeah,
that's like never going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like the Rodgers situation in Green Bay too. You're buying a guy at MVP levels, right? Like, so the rational thing is to say, okay, take a hike. Like you had a great season, go cash in, but we have a process here, but it does take a toll, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree with the best thing you said there was that you wouldn't trade. Like if we were GMs, I don't think any of us is beating down the door to trade for Xavien Howard and then negotiate with him after trading for him after a 10 interception season.
Yeah, like to me, it just seems like it seems silly unless you're Jacksonville, unless you have a ton of slack, right? Like,
I guess, but then again, like why would you tie up money? Brad, what do you think? Do you think he gets traded?
Yeah, no. So I really do at this point. I think that not going to resolve itself. We've seen players before where a big issue is not being the highest paid player at their position on the roster. It had something to do with why Stephon Diggs is now a Buffalo Bill. We've seen it happen before, and I think that we have 4 years left on Xavien Howard's deal is an eternity for a 28-year-old corner. So I do think he gets moved, but I think like you said at the same time, other teams are looking at this like, hey, he's Dogecoin at 70 cents right now. Like his value is literally at its absolute peak, and it's only trending downward. So, are you parting with a first-round pick? I don't think it's something that would be smart to do because you're also then, going to give him a huge new contract when he gets there potentially. I do think it's moved, though. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's why people go, oh, my God, I can't believe a guy who just played so well got traded for a second, a third, a fourth-round pick. And it's like there's a reason. Like it's not just like these teams. So we give teams a hard time. But like, there's a lot of situations where people just do not see the reasoning there, and that's certainly one.